Chapter 1. The Ice King and the Intern. It was 8:57 a.m. on a Monday morning when Krystal Amber stood in front of the gleaming glass doors of Cassidy and Cole, clutching her portfolio in one hand and a lukewarm matcha latte in the other. "This is it," she whispered to herself. "Big law, big break, big boss with no soul." She took a breath, adjusted her curls and pushed open the doors into a lobby so pristine she was afraid her flats would leave scuff marks. The receptionist looked like she belonged in a skincare ad and greeted her with the kind of smile that said, "You're cute. You won't survive here." Krystal smiled back. She would. He had to. She was barely 2 minutes into orientation when she heard it. The hush that fell like a silencer on a crowded floor. Papers rustled nervously. Phones were lowered mid-sentence. Then she saw him. Lawrence Cassidy. He walked out of his office in a three-piece charcoal gray suit that looked like it cost more than her entire college education. Broad-shouldered. Dark-haired. Cheekbones like cliffs and eyes like a lawsuit waiting to happen. His face was carved from stone and had the personality to match. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. People simply parted when he passed like a very expensive, very judgmental Moses. Krystal leaned toward the HR assistant. "That's him. Lawrence Cassidy," the woman whispered. "Founding partner. Harvard Law. Undefeated in court. Hasn't smiled since 2006. Krystal blinked. Was that a rumor or a court record? Before she could get an answer, Cassidy's eyes swept across the room and landed on her. Oh no. Because in that exact moment, Krystal's fingers loosened around her latte. It tumbled from her hand in slow motion, bounced off her folder and splattered across the polished marble floor. And right onto his Italian leather shoes. There was a silence so profound it was practically biblical. Krystal gasped. "Oh my God. I am so sorry." Cassidy looked down then at her. Not angry. Not surprised. Just blank. "Do you make it a habit to throw beverages at your superiors?" he asked, voice cool and controlled. Krystal grabbed a napkin from her tote and knelt to blot his shoes. "No. I mean, this was an accident. I don't usually attack people with caffeine, I swear." "I'd hope not," he said, stepping back. "This suit is custom. Milan." "Well, I'm custom too," she snapped before she could stop herself. "Detroit." A few gasps echoed. Cassidy blinked. Then for just a moment something flickered behind his eyes. Amusement? Oh, couldn't be. He turned away. "HR, find her a desk." "Not near me." And just like that the Ice King vanished back into his office. By noon, Krystal was seated 2 desks down from Cassidy's private office, armed with color-coded tabs, an annotated contract, and a silent vow not to make another mistake. She'd been paired with Lawrence, against all logic, as his temporary paralegal while his longtime assistant took maternity leave. Temporary. That was the key word. All she had to do was not get fired. Her first assignment: prep documents for a client meeting at 3 p.m. easy. She was double-checking everything when a deep voice spoke behind her. "Did you just highlight the entire contract?" Krystal turned, startled. Lawrence stood behind her, eyebrow raised. "It's color-coded," she said defensively. "Green for clauses that benefit the client. Yellow for neutral. Pink for vibes." "Vibes," he repeated flatly. "Yes. Like, emotional tone. Hidden aggression. Passive-aggressive clauses." He took the folder from her and scanned it. Clause 14. "The supplier shall use best reasonable efforts." What about that screamed passive-aggressive to you? It just has bad energy. Lawrence looked at her. Then in a flat tone, "I've met Supreme Court justices with less audacity." Krystal smiled sweetly. "Thank you." By 3 p.m. she was already earning glares from the other paralegals. Apparently, Lawrence didn't talk to most of them unless it was to issue a critique. Yet he'd already said 3 whole sentences to Krystal, and only 2 of them were insults. Progress? The meeting went smoothly, mostly because Krystal passed him notes during the client's nervous rambling. At one point Lawrence actually used one of her suggestions. She didn't say anything, but she absolutely fist-pumped in her head. After the client left, he stood at the door, pausing. "You caught that non-compete clause issue," he said quietly. "I didn't." Krystal blinked. Yeah, I did. You have good instincts." Pause. Even if you insist on weaponizing beverages. Was that almost a joke? Thank you, Mr. Cassidy. He turned to leave, then stopped. It's Lawrence. He grinned. You sure? That's dangerously casual for someone who hasn't smiled since 2006. He didn't answer. But she could have sworn the corner of his mouth twitched. That night, Krystal sat at her small apartment kitchen table, updating her digital journal. Day 1 at Cassidy & Cole. Met the infamous Lawrence Cassidy. Ruined his suit. Possibly made him smirk. Somehow still employed. She looked at the coffee mug on the table. Tomorrow, she muttered to it. No spills. No sass. No sarcasm. But deep down she kind of hoped she'd break at least one of those rules. Because Lawrence Cassidy might be made of ice, but something told her he'd be really fun to melt. Chapter 2, Brief Encounters. By day 2, Krystal Amber had already developed a theory. Lawrence Cassidy wasn't human. No, really. His posture was too perfect, his desk too clean, his tone too consistent. Robots had more emotional variance. If he ever cracked a smile in his life, she imagined the ground would split open and reveal an underground vault filled with secrets, sarcasm, and suppressed feelings. It was 8:03 a.m. when he walked past her desk. Again, no nod, no glance, just the rustle of silk tie and polished shoes on expensive carpet. Good morning, Mr. Cassidy, she tried. He paused. Just a beat. Then, you're late. I was early yesterday. I figured we'd average it out. No reply. But as he disappeared into his office, she could swear she saw his shoulders rise and fall in a silent sigh of tolerance. Progress. That afternoon, Krystal was called into a war room meeting. The case? A tabloid-fueled celebrity divorce that had everyone at the firm buzzing. Client, Serena Blaze. Pop diva. Queen of high notes and low blows. Defendant, her soon-to-be ex Chase Devlin. Known for shirtless Instagram rants. Representing Serena? None other than Lawrence Cassidy. And assisting him? He guessed it. This is a high-profile case, Lawrence said coolly. The media is already circling. Every detail must be flawless. Krystal raised a hand. Question. Do I have to sign an NDA, or just accept that I'll never be able to tell anyone that I breathe the same air as Serena Blaze? He didn't even look up. Your sense of humor is persistent. It's hereditary. Lawrence passed her a folder. Start with the financial disclosure review. Focus on offshore assets and endorsements. Got it. Search for sketchy money and diva-level diamond invoices. Understood. From across the room, one of the other associates gave her a look like, you actually talk to him like that? She gave a subtle shrug back. I think he likes it. The next few days were a whirlwind. Krystal found herself staying late, her desk lit by the dull blue glow of her laptop screen. Lawrence, of course, was always there. Reviewing. Rewriting. Ruling. But little things started to shift. On Wednesday he handed her coffee without her asking. On Thursday he corrected a typo she'd made, but with a post-it note that said careful. The paparazzi would love this mistake. On Friday he asked her opinion. Not legal advice. Opinion. Do you think the prenup clause comes off too aggressive? He murmured, eyes fixed on the screen. Krystal blinked. Are you asking for tone advice? On a breakup clause. He looked at her. Your instincts are sharp. You understand how people read between the lines. She bit back a smile. So you do admit I'm good at reading vibes. I'm reserving judgment, he said. She leaned in with a grin. Too late. It's in writing now. By the end of the week, Krystal had added a new section to her digital journal. Signs that Lawrence Cassidy may be a human, possibly. 1. Brings coffee. 2. Doesn't fire you for sarcasm. 3. Asks your opinion and doesn't follow it with a sigh. 4. Has nice hands. This doesn't prove humanity but still worth noting. 5. Might have smiled. Maybe. Almost. On Friday night, Krystal stayed later than usual to organize documents for Monday's mediation prep. The office was mostly dark, except for the low hum of overhead lights and the quiet clack of one other keyboard. Lawrence's. She peeked inside his office. You know it's legal to go home sometimes, she said gently. He didn't look up. Deadlines don't wait. She hesitated, then stepped closer. Can I ask something, not related to the divorce of the century? His fingers paused on the keyboard. Go ahead. Why law? He didn't answer for a moment. Then, because it's precise. Controlled. Fair. That's not what I've heard. He looked up at her and for once she saw something raw and honest flicker in his expression. I grew up with chaos. Law made sense. Rules. Logic. No emotion to complicate things. She softened. So that's why you run your office like a robot with a superiority complex. He huffed. Not a laugh. But close. You have no filter, do you? Nope. Fresh out. Budget cuts. Lawrence studied her, expression unreadable. Then he nodded once. That may be why you're still here. And then he smiled. It was faint. Barely there. But real. Krystal blinked. Oh my God. Alert the media. Cassidy's face moved. Don't get used to it. Too late. It's burned into my memory. By the time she left, Krystal felt a strange flutter in her chest. It wasn't just admiration. Or even attraction. It was curiosity. The kind you felt when you opened a mystery novel and realized the brooding lead might have a soul buried beneath 3 layers of custom tailoring and sarcasm. Krystal pulled her coat tight as she walked to the subway, wind biting at her cheeks. This job had started as a stepping stone. But suddenly she wasn't sure what felt more dangerous. Working with the infamous Lawrence Cassidy, or wanting to know what happened when the Ice King started to thaw. Chapter 3. Cross-examination of the heart. Monday morning came like a slap in the face, and not the kind you could sue someone for. Krystal entered the office balancing 2 coffees, a blueberry muffin and a stack of case files. She'd only been working with Lawrence Cassidy for a week, but already she had a sixth sense for when he would be especially prickly. Rain plus media leaks plus poorly redacted evidence? Yeah. Today was one of those days. Sure enough, the office was buzzing like a beehive in a panic. Serena Blaze's ex had posted a vague tweet that everyone assumed was about the prenup negotiations. Funny how love turns into a business deal. #LoveIsOr. The tabloids were going wild. The client was fuming. And Lawrence? He was sharpening his jawline with pure stress. Krystal set his coffee on the desk. Hazelnut. Extra hot. No sugar. No milk. No hope. He didn't look up. I didn't ask for coffee. I didn't ask to be publicly roasted by a pop star's ex-boyfriend, but here we are. That earned her a glance. He looked tired but composed as always. You're oddly cheerful for someone working 14-hour days. I run on caffeine, sarcasm and spite. Also, I like a challenge. Good, he murmured. Because this day's going to be one. Later that morning, Lawrence and Krystal sat in a tense strategy meeting with Serena Blaze and her 2 Pomeranians in matching diamond collars. Serena paced in heels that defied physics, ranting about betrayal headlines, and whether she should leak a song called Lies in Legalese. We can't control his Twitter, Lawrence said calmly. But we can control the narrative in court. We'll focus on the earnings disparity and asset division. Emotionally charged language won't help us. Serena flipped her extensions. I invented emotionally charged language. Krystal, seated just behind Lawrence, scribbled a note on a legal pad and nudged it toward him. Try reminding her how this affects brand image and future endorsements. Calm queen, unhinged diva. Lawrence read it, nodded almost imperceptibly, then said smoothly, Serena, your brand is powerful. This case sets precedent, not just legally but publicly. Control wins. Serena blinked. Ooh, I like that. Control wins. That's a t-shirt. Amber, write that down. It's Krystal, she said. But I'll write it down. After the meeting, Lawrence followed Krystal out into the hallway, holding her note. You're strategic, he said. I'm a woman. Strategy is second nature. He looked at her, and for a moment his expression softened again. You handle high-pressure situations well. Thank you, she said. It's the trauma response talking. A beat. I'm starting to think sarcasm is your love language. Nope, she said grinning. Acts of service. Which is why I bring you coffee, save your case, and haven't thrown a stapler at anyone all week. That evening, as they worked late reviewing disclosure documents, Lawrence's phone buzzed. He frowned. Problem? Krystal asked, stretching her arms. Hi, brother, he muttered. He's getting married. Wants me to attend the rehearsal dinner next week. That's a problem? He glanced at her. We're not close. He's all emotion, chaos, family hugs. He thinks I'm made of granite. I mean, you do have granite vibes, Krystal said gently. Lawrence exhaled. He told me to bring someone so I don't scare the bride. Krystal tilted her head. That's oddly considerate. I think he meant it as an insult. Still, sounds like a big moment. He gave her a side glance. Would you consider coming with me? She blinked. To the wedding? No, he said quickly. Just the rehearsal dinner. I would prefer not to go alone. Krystal gaped. You want me to be your fake date? Fake +1, he corrected. Just for dinner. You know how to talk to people. You'd keep my brother's commentary at bay. Krystal leaned back. So let me get this straight. You, Lawrence Cassidy, top lawyer, emotionally unavailable, allergic to small talk, are asking me to pose as your charming social buffer. Yes. What's in it for me? He raised an eyebrow. You can pick the playlist in my car. Krystal gasped. You have a playlist? I have control over music in confined spaces, he said flatly. She considered. What should I wear? He blinked. So, yes. Only because I want to see you interact with people who know your childhood nickname. He gave her a withering look. Don't ask. I'm going to Google it. Later that night, Krystal updated her journal. Unexpected developments. Got complimented. Non-sarcastically. He's human confirmed. I'm going to a rehearsal dinner with the Ice King. What does one wear to emotionally thaw a lawyer in front of his family? She stared at the blinking cursor for a long time. Then added, I should definitely buy new heels. Social evidence. The restaurant was intimate and warmly lit. Soft jazz playing, wine glasses clinking, and chatter echoing off dark wood walls. Krystal walked in on Lawrence's arm, dressed in a deep emerald dress that made her eyes pop like courtroom objections. Lawrence was quiet, but not cold. More like bracing. This was a bad idea, he muttered. Oh, 100%. But you already told them I'm coming, so we're in it together now. She nudged him with a smirk. Besides, I wore heels of emotional support. He glanced sideways at her. You look appropriate. Krystal raised an eyebrow. Wow. I almost blushed. Inside, Lawrence's younger brother, Gavin Cassidy, was already holding court near the bar. Loose tie, open smile, and a look of utter amusement when he spotted them. Laurie. Gavin called, arms open. You made it. And with a date. My God, it's a miracle. Lawrence winced. Don't call me that. Krystal's eyes sparkled. Laurie? Like the seasoning. Gavin beamed. You're quick. I like her. She'll survive. They were ushered to a long table. Introductions followed. Parents, cousins, an aunt named May who immediately gave Krystal a hug and whispered, You poor thing. Is he letting you sleep or is he still working at midnight? Krystal laughed. He's only slightly less demanding than the Navy. Lawrence gave her a sharp look. You said social buffer, she mouthed. Dinner started. Wine flowed. And Krystal saw it, the tiny cracks in Lawrence's armor. He laughed once. Not loud. But real. He leaned closer to her to translate one of his aunt's more incoherent rants. And when the dessert came, so did the story. Did Laurie ever tell you about the pool incident? Gavin said, grinning devilishly. Lawrence froze. Don't. Krystal grinned. Do. Gavin didn't even pause. He was 12. Tried to impress a girl by diving off the high board. Except he slipped. Midair. Did a full belly flop. Glasses flew off. Came up choking and yelling about legal action. Krystal gasped. You threatened a lawsuit as a preteen? I was concussed, Lawrence muttered. You were dramatic, Gavin corrected. He started citing municipal safety codes to the lifeguard while dripping pool water. I've never been prouder. Krystal turned to Lawrence with wide eyes. That's weirdly adorable. He sighed. Are you done? Never, Gavin said cheerfully. Later, as they stepped outside, Krystal looped her arm through his, shoes in hand, heels finally surrendered. Your family loves you, you know. They tolerate me. That's different. No, it's not, she said quietly. They see you. Maybe not all the time. But they love what they see. He glanced at her. And what do you see? Krystal met his gaze, her voice softening. A man who hides in rules so he doesn't get hurt. A man who remembers safety codes but forgot how to flirt. And a man who's somehow both impossible and weirdly charming. Lawrence didn't answer. Just looked at her, really looked. His eyes weren't cold now. They were searching. The moment stretched. Breathless. Electric. And then he said, "You still owe me a playlist." Krystal blinked, heart stuttering. Right. Of course. Priorities. Chapter 4. Motion to feel things. By Monday morning the office felt different. Not that anyone said anything. But Krystal swore the front desk receptionist gave her a look when she walked in with Lawrence. Both holding coffees, both in suspiciously good moods. She took her seat and typed furiously to pretend nothing had happened. Because nothing had happened. Except she now knew what Lawrence looked like when he was relaxed. Smiling. Slightly flushed from laughter. She now knew that his family called him Laurie, and that he blushed when people said nice things about him. She now knew that when his hand brushed hers on the way out of the restaurant he didn't pull away. So yeah. Totally fine. Not spiraling. "You're early," Lawrence said, appearing at her desk with his usual clipboard. Krystal blinked. "You say that like it's a crime." He looked at her a beat too long. "It's surprising. You're just mad I beat you to the espresso machine." "I have my own." Krystal made a face. "Of course you do. Coffee elitist." As they prepped for the next hearing, a sharp knock came at Lawrence's office door. Enter. Julia Grant, senior associate, tall, poised and polished within an inch of her life. She zeroed in on Krystal with a smile too thin to be friendly. "Oh, you're the new paralegal." Krystal stood. "Krystal Amber. Nice to meet you." "Julia Grant," she replied smoothly before turning to Lawrence. "Didn't know you had company at the rehearsal dinner. Thought you were still married to the job." Krystal raised a brow. There it is. The ex-work flirt. Office past history vibes. Lawrence barely flinched. "Krystal was kind enough to accompany me." "Interesting," Julia said, eyes flicking to Krystal's bracelet. "You don't usually do personal." Krystal smiled sweetly. "Don't worry. I don't usually do intense silence and emotionally repressed eye contact, but life is full of surprises." Julia's lips thinned. "Well, I'm sure it's temporary." "We're just colleagues," Krystal replied lightly. "Strictly business. I only mock him for free on weekends." Lawrence cleared his throat. "We're due in conference room B in 5. As Julia walked away, Krystal turned to him with a grin. "Ex-crush. Work friend. Oh, you wound me. And here I thought I was your only not friend." He looked amused. "I thought we established you're my emotional buffer." "Your words. Not mine." That afternoon, Krystal tried to focus on client briefs but found herself distracted by every microglance from Lawrence. He didn't hover exactly. But he lingered. Once he handed her a file and his fingers brushed hers. Neither of them moved. Once she caught him looking at her when he thought she wasn't paying attention. And once he asked if she needed a lunch break. A sentence he had never uttered before. Was this what a slow emotional landslide felt like? Krystal went to the rooftop cafe to clear her head, but she barely made it halfway through her overpriced salad before Lawrence Cassidy appeared. "Hey, Laurie's fake girlfriend." She blinked. "How did you?" "He told me you work here. And I'm nosy." Krystal set her fork down. "And you just decided to crash my lunch like a rom-com side character?" "Exactly," he said, plopping down across from her. "So, what's the deal with my brother?" "The whole chemistry strong enough to grill a steak vibe you two had the other night." Krystal exhaled. "It was just dinner." He gave her a look. "Do you believe that?" She hesitated. "I think," she said slowly, "that I like him more than I'm supposed to. And that's a problem. Because he's still Lawrence Cassidy. Unavailable, intimidating, allergic to personal warmth." Gavin smirked. "You'd be surprised. He's just never had someone call him out while bringing him coffee." Krystal stared into her drink. "It's a bad idea." "You know what else is a bad idea?" Gavin said, standing. "Letting fear win. Lawrence might be a fortress, but I think he left the gates open for you." That evening, Krystal was still turning over Gavin's words when Lawrence knocked on her cubicle wall. "I'm heading out," he said, which was also a first. "Oh. You're allowed to leave the building before 10. He almost smiled. Would you like a ride? Krystal stared at him. Then, sure. The car ride was quiet, but not uncomfortable. When they pulled up to her apartment, Krystal unbuckled her seatbelt and turned to him. So, thanks for the ride. And the fake date. And the emotional whiplash. Lawrence looked at her, unreadable. You're welcome. He lingered. So did he. And then she did the dumbest thing imaginable. She kissed him. Just a soft press of lips. Barely there. But it happened. And for a second, just 1 second, he kissed her back. Slow. Careful. Like he was afraid the moment might break. Then he pulled away. I shouldn't, he said, voice low. This complicates everything. Krystal's heart beat in her throat. Too late. And with that, she stepped out and shut the door behind her. Back in her apartment, Krystal leaned against the door and whispered to herself. Congratulations, Amber. You've officially caught feelings for the one man in the city who treats emotions like legal liabilities. Chapter 5. Exhibit You're in Love. Krystal hadn't meant to kiss him. Well, okay, maybe she had meant to. But she hadn't expected him to kiss her back, even for a second. No. Radio silence. For 2 days. No texts. No surprise coffee cups. No sarcastic banter about cross-examinations or case file thickness. Just nothing. She told herself it was fine. That she was fine. That kissing your boss was stupid and reckless and potentially career-destroying, and that she should move on and focus on her actual job. Which was hard because said job involved sitting 15 feet away from the man she just made out with. I'm unwell, Krystal muttered to herself as she stapled emotion and nearly stapled her own hand. Need help, came a voice. She looked up and nearly dropped her highlighter. Lawrence Cassidy. In a perfectly tailored navy suit. Hair slightly ruffled. And God help her, his tie was loose. The world's tiniest sign that he might be slightly off-kilter. I'm good, she said quickly. He nodded. Then hesitated. Can we talk? Privately. Cue the internal alarm bells. She followed him into his office and closed the door. It felt like walking into a courtroom where she was on trial. He paced for a second, then turned. About the other night. Krystal raised a hand. Let me guess. It was a mistake. You were tired. Emotional vulnerability isn't in your emotional vocabulary. You'd prefer we pretend it didn't happen so the professional dynamic remains intact. Pause. Then he blinked. Yes, but I wasn't going to say it that rudely. She sighed. Look, I get it. You're my boss. I kissed you. That's on me. He looked at her. I kissed you back. Momentary lapse in judgment, she said flatly. No, he said, stepping closer. That's the problem. It wasn't. Her breath hitched. I've spent years avoiding anything outside the courtroom, he said quietly. Control is what I'm good at. But with you. He trailed off. With me what? She asked, voice soft. With you, he said. I'm not sure I'm in control anymore. Silence. Thick. Harsh. Hopeful. Then knock knock knock. They both jolted apart like high schoolers getting caught by a teacher. The door opened a crack and in leaned Julia Grant, of course, holding a folder and a smirk. Sorry to interrupt, she said, clearly not sorry. Partners meeting in 10. Lawrence cleared his throat. I'll be right there. Julia's eyes flicked between them, lingered on Krystal and then disappeared. Krystal looked at him. This is messy. He nodded. Very. She turned to leave. We'll keep it professional. But as she walked out, she heard him say, just barely above a whisper. That's the last thing I want. The office buzzed with rumors by Wednesday. Krystal could feel the stares. Hear the whispers. Someone had seen them walk in together after the rehearsal dinner. Someone else mentioned the rooftop cafe lunch with Gavin. Then came the nail in the coffin. Krystal got assigned to 2 new high-profile cases directly under Lawrence. So, whispered Linda from HR as she handed Krystal a stapler. Are you too, you know? Krystal blinked. Illegal. Linda leaned in. Involved. No comment, Krystal said, stabbing her coffee lid instead of answering. He hated gossip. She hated the idea that people thought she earned her position by flirting her way up. And more than anything, she hated that she wanted to be near Lawrence even though it complicated everything. That night they stayed late. The case was brutal. Messy child custody with a vindictive ex and too many emails to sift through. Krystal's brain was fried. Her back ached. And she couldn't help but groan as she rolled her chair away from her desk. "You okay?" Lawrence asked, looking up from his screen. "Just my spine crumbling. Nothing major." Without a word, he stood, walked over, and pressed his hands to her shoulders. Krystal froze. You're touching me." "I'm aware." His thumbs brushed against a knot in her shoulder and she let out a sound that was definitely not office appropriate. He paused. "Was that a—" "Keep going or I'll file a complaint for intentional denial of therapeutic relief," she groaned. He chuckled softly, actually chuckled, and kept going. The room was too quiet. Too warm. Too close. She tilted her head slightly. "You're not helping me not like you, you know." He stopped. "Is that really what you want?" Krystal turned in her chair, looking up at him. "Honestly, I have no idea what I want anymore." He stared at her. Then he leaned down. And in the quiet of the empty office, just as the clock hit midnight, Lawrence Cassidy kissed her. Properly this time. No hesitation. No second-guessing. Just feeling. When they broke apart, Krystal was breathless. "Okay," she whispered. That felt like bad judgment, but also very, very good. Lawrence smiled, barely, but it was there. "For once," he said, "I'll risk a little bad judgment." Chapter 6. Conflict of Interest. By morning, the office tension was thick enough to be filed under hostile environment. Krystal stepped into Cassidy and Bell with her game face on, heels sharp, blazer pressed. But every glance, every hushed whisper behind a coffee mug, every sudden silence when she entered a room screamed they know. Or worse, they think they know. She avoided Lawrence all morning. Partly because she needed to breathe. Mostly because she could still feel his lips on hers. It wasn't supposed to happen again. But it had. And this time it wasn't a spontaneous mistake in a car. It was a kiss on firm property. After hours. With open laptops and case files as witnesses. A kiss that made her think about things she really shouldn't be thinking about. Like whether a man with control issues could fall in love, and whether he'd even know it if he did. She was organizing briefs when she was summoned. To HR. Not ideal. Linda, the HR rep, didn't offer a smile this time. "Krystal, come in." The room was quiet. Too quiet. "There's been an anonymous complaint," Linda said carefully, "about inappropriate behavior between you and Mr. Cassidy." Krystal's stomach sank. "Anonymous?" "Yes. It alleges favoritism, personal involvement, and potential ethical concerns regarding shared cases." Krystal sat up straighter. This is ridiculous." "I'm not saying it's true," Linda said quickly. "But the partners take image seriously. And Mr. Cassidy is a name partner in waiting." "Of course he is." "If there's any truth to it," Linda continued gently, "you could be removed from his cases. Or reassigned to another division. Possibly even suspended." Krystal's blood ran cold. Not because of the career consequences, but because this was her worst-case scenario. The assumption that she didn't earn what she had. That it was handed to her because she was pretty or available or convenient. "I understand," she said quietly. Linda nodded. "We'll notify you of next steps." "And Krystal? I'm sorry. This stuff is never easy." Krystal smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "No. It never is." She didn't see Lawrence until late afternoon, when he strode into her cubicle and closed the door behind him without a word. His face was unreadable. Jaw set. Eyes stormy. "You heard," she said. "I heard. There goes this strictly professional plan, huh?" "I'm fixing it." Krystal's heart stuttered. "Fixing." "I already spoke with the partners. I'm requesting your reassignment. Away from me. No shared cases. No direct reporting." Her stomach dropped. "You're what?" Lawrence looked at her. "If it protects you, I'll take the hit. Your reputation matters more than me staying near you?" Her voice cracked. "Then risking your career because I couldn't keep a boundary." Krystal stood. "You think I'm some porcelain doll who needs saving? You think I don't know how this works? I've fought to be here." "I know you have," he said fiercely. "Which is exactly why I won't be the reason you're pushed out." She shook her head. "You can't just remove me like I'm a conflict of interest checkbox. I'm trying to protect you." "Well, maybe I didn't ask to be protected," she snapped. "Maybe I wanted to be chosen." Silence. That terrible, awful, deafening silence. His hands clenched at his sides. Then, voice tight, he said, "You think this is easy for me?" "No," she whispered. "But I think you still don't get it." And she walked out, before he could see the tears burning in her eyes. That night, Krystal stayed late, sitting alone at the firm's rooftop cafe. It was windy. Quiet. Cold. Exactly how she felt. She was angry. At the firm. At the system. At the stupid anonymous complaint. But most of all, she was angry at herself. For falling. For hoping. For thinking a man like Lawrence Cassidy, cold, composed, emotionally armored, would ever fight for her. And just when she was about to leave, she heard the door creak open. Lawrence. Tie loose. Shirt slightly wrinkled. Hands jammed in his pockets like he didn't know what to do with them. He didn't say anything at first. Just walked over and sat down beside her. Quiet. Careful. Uncharacteristically vulnerable. "I'm not good at this," he said finally. She didn't look at him. "I don't know what a healthy relationship looks like. I know courtrooms. I know clauses. I know how to win. But with you, I keep feeling like I've already lost." Krystal looked at him then. Really looked. "I don't want you to lose," she said softly. "I want you to try." He took a shaky breath. "I talked to HR again." Her brow furrowed. "Why?" "I told them I initiated the kiss." Her heart stopped. "What?" "I said it was my lapse in judgment. That I crossed a line. That you didn't do anything wrong." Krystal stared at him. "Lawrence, you didn't have to." "I wanted to," he said. "Because if there's even a chance for something real between us, I'm not starting it by letting you take the fall." Her throat tightened. "And if you want me to stay away," he continued, voice low, "I will. But if you don't." He reached out, tentatively, hopefully, and brushed her hand with his. She didn't pull away. "You still owe me that playlist," she whispered. He smiled, really smiled this time. "I was hoping you'd say that." Chapter 7. Out of office, out of excuses. For the first time since starting at Cassidy and Bell, Krystal woke up on a Saturday not dreading Monday. Which was odd considering her boss kissed her. Twice. Correction, her boss kissed her, took the fall for it, and then, voluntarily, offered her a second chance at something real. Which begged the question. Was Lawrence Cassidy courting her? Her phone buzzed. "Cassidy. I hate small talk. But I'm attempting some. What do people do on Saturdays?" She laughed. "Krystal. Normal people. Brunch. Errands. Farmer's market." "Cassidy. I don't do brunch. Or errands. I have heard of avocados though." "Krystal. That's a start. Come over. I'll show you how humans live." There was a pause. Then, "Cassidy. Text me your address. I'll bring coffee. The real kind, not office sludge." By 11, Krystal had cleaned her apartment 3 times over, changed outfits twice, and lit a candle that claimed to smell like autumn romance, whatever that meant. Then the doorbell rang. She opened it to find Lawrence Cassidy, Mr. Supreme Court level serious, holding 2 coffee cups and a paper bag of pastries. "You brought carbs," she teased, stepping aside to let him in. "I had help," he admitted. There was a very enthusiastic woman behind the counter named Carol. She said, "You look like a croissant person." Krystal snorted. "I am a croissant person." He looked around her apartment. Books stacked in corners, a tiny balcony garden, a framed diploma and photo of her and her mom. "This place suits you." She raised a brow. "You thought I lived in a filing cabinet, didn't you?" "I pictured alphabetical throw pillows." She mock gasped. "How dare you?" They sat on the floor, sipping coffee, surrounded by pastry crumbs and sunbeams. It was easy, quiet, sweet. She told him about her childhood, how her mom raised her alone, how she used to pretend to be a judge when playing with dolls. He told her about law school, how he used to sleep in the library and once lost a debate because he literally forgot to eat for 48 hours. "You're lucky you're handsome," she said. "Handsome," he echoed. "You think I'm handsome?" She blushed. "Objectively. It's in the employee handbook." Lawrence leaned a little closer. "Well, I think you're dangerously charming. It's not in the handbook. But it should be." Their eyes met. He kissed her again. Not rushed. Not uncertain. Just soft. Warm. Like he meant it. Later that evening they took a walk around her neighborhood. No suits. No file folders. Just hand in hand like two normal people pretending they didn't spend their weekdays drowning in depositions. At one point she pulled him into a bookstore. He looked mildly panicked. There are genres. You'll survive, she said, dragging him into the romance section. Pick a book. He looked at the shelves like he was choosing between court sentences. Then, this one. Enemies to lovers. Feels familiar. Krystal laughed so hard she snorted. Oh my God. You're funny when you're off the clock. I've always been funny. You've just been too dazzled by my briefs. Objection, she said, poking his side. Sustained, he whispered, brushing a kiss against her temple. Back at her apartment as they sipped hot chocolate and listened to her low-key feelings playlist, Lawrence grew unusually quiet. She glanced at him. What's going on in that high-powered mind of yours? He hesitated, then said, This is the first time in years I've spent a Saturday not thinking about work. She smiled softly. Is that a good thing or a terrifying thing? He looked at her. Both. Pause. Then, you're very distracting, Krystal Amber. She leaned on his shoulder. I'll take that as a compliment. You should, he murmured, wrapping an arm around her waist. Because if I had to choose between winning a case or hearing you laugh again, I might actually choose the latter. Krystal blinked. Wow, she said. That might be the sweetest thing you've ever said. I know. I feel nauseous. She laughed and cuddled closer. Next weekend, she whispered, we'll work on introducing you to brunch. And after that? She smiled. We'll figure it out. One sweet moment at a time. Chapter 8. Closing Arguments. Cassidy and Belle's biggest trial of the year had finally arrived. And despite Lawrence requesting Krystal's official reassignment 2 weeks ago, the partners had reversed course after the HR investigation cleared them both. Apparently, someone anonymous had come forward, again, to clarify that the complaint was false and fueled by jealousy. It may or may not have been Carol from the pastry shop. Krystal had no proof. Just a feeling. Now with the media watching and millions of dollars on the line, Lawrence was back in the courtroom. Calm. Precise. Brilliant. And Krystal, no longer just his paralegal, was right there in the second row, her laptop open, her eyes sharp, and her heart pounding for reasons that had nothing to do with closing arguments. The opposing counsel was ruthless. An older attorney with a reputation for underhanded tactics and a voice that could lull juries into submission. But Lawrence? He stood like a monolith of logic and charisma. Every sentence he spoke landed like a gavel. Every counterargument sliced cleanly through misdirection. Krystal was riveted. Because watching Lawrence Cassidy work wasn't just impressive, it was sexy. God help her. She wasn't supposed to fall for the office legend. But she had. Heart. And the worst part? He kept looking at her. Tiny glances. Secret smiles. One time when he referenced truth, fairness, and the right to choose. He looked right at her. Like he meant her. When court adjourned, the firm exploded in celebration. Champagne. High fives. Partners shaking hands like they'd just survived a war. Lawrence was surrounded instantly. But his eyes still found her. Krystal slipped away from the crowd, unsure what came next. They'd danced around their feelings for weeks now. Sneaking moments between emails, lingering touches after case briefings, half-finished conversations and late-night texts that always ended too soon. She thought she'd made peace with it. Until she turned a corner. And ran right into him. Hi, he said. Hi, she breathed. You ran off. I thought I'd let you enjoy your victory. I did. He stepped closer. But I haven't celebrated properly. Oh. Her voice trembled. And what does that look like for you? He didn't answer. Instead, Lawrence lifted a hand, slowly, gently, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. I've won 100 cases, he said quietly. But the best thing I've fought for this year is you. Krystal's breath caught. That kiss in the car? I haven't stopped thinking about it. And the rooftop. And your apartment. And how your laugh makes me forget everything I thought I cared about. He leaned in. Close it. And this time when their lips met, it wasn't rushed. It wasn't complicated. It was everything. Sweet and aching and full of things they hadn't said. His hand slid to her cheek, her fingers tangled in his collar, and for one long moment nothing else mattered. No courtrooms. No cases. Just them. When they finally pulled apart, she was breathless. "So," she whispered. "That's what winning looks like." He smirked. "Still want to object?" She smiled. Overruled. Epilogue. 6 months later. Cassidy and Amber wasn't the name of the firm. Yet. But that didn't stop the new office joke from spreading after Krystal passed the bar with flying colors. She'd made her own name now, on merit, on fire, and on fierce cross-examinations that even Lawrence admitted were scary good. They still kept things semi-private. But the worst-kept secret in the firm was that Lawrence Cassidy, the coldest lawyer in New York, now brought 2 coffees to work each morning, one with oat milk and cinnamon. And on certain late nights, if you looked through the conference room window, you might catch a kiss between files, a brush of fingers over depositions, and the soft sound of laughter echoing from behind the strongest legal mind in the building, who just happened to be madly in love with the woman who challenged everything he thought he knew. And won.